Hello and good morning, everyone. Today, we're looking at the latest in our Alertus how-to series, which are our reports for troubleshooting. My name is Brian. I'm the Senior Technical Training Specialist here at Alertus, and I'm going to be guiding you through this presentation today. Our agenda is reasonably straightforward. As you might imagine, we're going to be looking at the reports on the web console. That includes alert history, device acknowledgement, device activation, user alert recipients, Voip activation reports, device status, group membership, location membership, and mobile membership. We're also going to be looking at how to apply these in a troubleshooting methodology. So once we know what all their tools are, we'll be looking at what ways we can use them and then try it out on a real-world example. Your outcome and goals for this is to understand what of these reports are available for us to use, develop the methodology for their use, and apply them. Again, nothing mind-blowing, but should be enough that gives us a good handle on how to troubleshoot in the Alertus web console. Let's get started. The reports you'll find on the left nav bar here under the section reports. There are also dashboards which are similar, but a little bit out of scope for this talk. So we're going to be focusing exclusively on these reports. These reports provide aggregated data on two main concepts. The first is looking at closer detail at alerts that have been sent out by the Alertus server in the past. With these reports, you'd be able to see what sort of information they contained, who got them, who acknowledged them, and take a look at any of the targeting methodology and configuration that was set up for those alerts at that point in time. An additional facet is being able to a sort of pulse check on the server itself in the here and now to see what devices are checking in, what groups they're assigned to, what locations they're assigned to, just making sure that all of your targeting endpoints are there and accounted for. I'm going to be starting with this first section, which is about previous alerts. So we can take this menu here and just narrow it down a little bit. These are the ones that are relevant to looking at previous alerts. The alert history is a summary of the contents and targets, so just an overview of that alert. Device acknowledgements is the time taken for users to physically click an input to say, I've acknowledged that this alert has happened, whereas device activations are just if it was received by the device at all. Generally, I find the device activations a little bit more useful, so we're going to be spending more time on that than the acknowledgements. User alert recipients are pretty interesting. This is the devices that have been targeted via a query of a specific user. We'll be looking at that in a little bit more detail, but it allows you to use either LDAP or local users depending on your configuration. And last but not least in this section is going to be VoIP activation reports. This is your phone extensions or whatever other means you are targeting phones for voice over IP using usually Cisco or Avaya or another vendor to be able to use those hardware endpoints. So let's take a closer look. Alert history has a whole lot going on. If something went wrong with an alert, this is always where you want to start. Its main functions help you to narrow down what the alert someone is talking about and verify its contents. So the first feature here is the alert number. This is the index that will be used in all other history to make sure you're talking about the same alert. Just an identifying number. Next is the send time. Usually when someone's telling you that an alert went wrong, they'll tell you about when it happened. This helps you narrow that down substantially, just having that up there. These targeted services are your first step for troubleshooting and debugging to make sure people are getting the right alert. You'll note here that there are icons referring to the type of alert services that are set up. For instance, this one has alert beacons, a flavor of Alertus desktop, Alertus mobile recipient app, and IP text-to-speech, which could be an IP text-to-speech speaker, or it could be an integration with a PA system, any sort of thing that takes the text and turns it into speech. We'll also note that all of these alert services are orange. Orange alert services respect the targeting of a group, whereas gray ones will hit all endpoints of that given type. For instance, a gray Alertus mobile recipient app alert service will hit everyone with the recipient app on that service, as opposed to only the ones subscribed to the listed groups. Additionally, some endpoints like Voip or an RSS or CAP server wouldn't make sense to have these servers grouped. So instead, in those gray alert services, the endpoints are baked in, whether that be the endpoint for the server or the extensions for the phone. It would also be irrespective of the groups. Not to go too deep, the next step here is the message. When someone's telling you that they didn't receive or received an erroneous message, you could also narrow it down by this section. And of great importance are these additional links. So this lets you take a look at that specific alert and reference it in these various other reports, the activations, acknowledgements, and user receipts. So it's just another reason to start with alert history. And once you find the one you're looking for, you can reference it in other reports. But you can also go a little bit deeper on alert history as well. You'll note this plus sign right here next to the alerts. If you click on it, you'll be able to expand out a given alert and get additional information. Here, as we were talking about with gray and orange alert services, we can see that this one is in fact targeting using group rather than all. So only devices of these types, also listed down here as alert services, that are also within these groups will receive this given message. So if a target is, say, of type alert beacon, but is not in one of these groups, it will not receive it. You can also see for alert beacons any of the additional peripherals or settings that are associated with them. So if your back of the alert beacon has some dry contact relays that are associated with any of these devices, they will be activated in this alert. Subsequently, or I should say alternatively, if you want to remove one of these types, you would simply remove that peripheral setting on this alert profile in this alert. But in this case, we're going to assume all of these do need to be turned on. We can also see the duration of this alert. So this one is only intended to go off for 2 minutes, but it is a high priority. And in the case of this particular alert in history, it finished due to expiration. It was not canceled early. Next up is the device acknowledgement reports. Now remember, this is the physical clicking of a button or pressing 2 buttons to let a user know they've received the alert. So in the case of Alertus Desktop, there will be an acknowledge button in the middle, where you can click an X in the top right to close out that window. For an alert beacon, there's 2 buttons on the front panel. If you press both of them simultaneously, then you acknowledge the alert. So in this case, we're looking at alert 244, which was canceled. The first part of this report gives you the general information that you can reference again, just to make sure that you are looking at the correct alert. The second part is a summary. We can see that 1 of 1 devices acknowledged this, and they did so quite quickly. And at the bottom is the device detail, where we can see the individual devices in their timing. In this case, Training Central took 16 seconds to acknowledge this alert. Now, I tell you this device acknowledgement report mostly to differentiate it from our next one, which is device activations. This is the one we actually care about, but it's very easy to get the 2 confused because they have the same 3 parts. The first part at the top is still the general information that you can index against. Make sure you're in the right alert. The second part does provide the chart in times, as you see here. We see we have 137 devices activated with an average time of 1.54 seconds per device. So we can see that we've got a nice bar graph, all of them less than 10 seconds. At the device detail, we can see it's paginated down here, and we can also change how many are displaying on page, but it gives us a nice spread of which ones were activated, which ones were not, and the seconds to activate. So we can see that we've got a spread between about 0 and 5 seconds here. This is useful if you're having late activations, If you're suspicious that there might be some sort of a subtree or subnet issue using spanning tree, excuse me, you can investigate here to see if any of them have an anonymously long time period. My goodness, it is a little bit early for this presentation. If you're looking for a specific device, you can also search right up here in the top right bar, and you can filter it by name or device ID, and I'll let you investigate specific devices that you are having a concern with. Next up is the user alert recipients. So this one also has this index first part, but it has something pretty neat here. Now, these are the user details. This is the second half beneath it. You can note that we have various ways to target. This one is a backslash of Akari at Alertus, but we also have some LDAPs as well. That's because this populates from two completely separate sources. If you're using LDAP targeted users mapped via middleware, so that this group includes a specific group as associated with LDAP, you will see them here. You can also upload a CSV to the contacts page on the Alertus web console, or manually enter them if you're feeling particularly feisty, and assign a contact type of user. In both cases, what is happening is when Alertus Desktop checks in, it provides some information about the client it is running on. It will tell you the IP address, it'll tell you the BSS ID it's connecting to, and most important for air purposes, it will tell you the logged in user. If that is a local domain, it will tell you so. And if it is LDAP, it will tell you so as well. So if you have specific users targeted in your user detail, and you have Alertus desktops checking in, if any of the Alertus desktops are reporting that user, they will be activated automatically if that contact is in the targeting set. This means if you don't know what computer someone is on, say you've got a floating tech support person that'll be on any given computer at any point of the day trying to fix something, you can include them in the group. And no matter what computer they're logged in on, if Alertus desktop is running on that machine while they are logged in, they will receive the alerts relevant to them, like say server outages. So this report lets you know if the targeted users by logged in user received or did not receive the alert during that given activation. A little bit of a tricky one, but very interesting. And last but not least in this section, of course, is the Voip activation report. So Voip is a funny beast. We can see here that we are targeting based off a directory number rather than IP address. And we're getting the respond codes from the phone. So different models of phones will respond with slightly different jarbled letters, which we interpret to be stop text or send buzz, and confirm that in the delivery status. This will give you an idea as to what the phone responded when it was targeted in a given alert. So let's just review the ones that we've gone over real fast. The first half is for determining what occurred in a previous alert. The most useful in determining the index number so that you can cross-reference this across all other reports, the time of activation, the alert services, which is again the way it is packaged for different types of devices, the targets, whether it be VoIP, users, or groups. We can reference all of that using these reports right here. And we can also correlate its activation and acknowledgement speed by using the device activations and acknowledgement reports respectively. So this section's really good for getting a picture of what happened when an alert was sent and trying to troubleshoot individual issues with previous alerts. Now then, let's look at the other type of alert, the ones pertaining to air device information. So let's just clean this up real fast. These are the ones that we're going to be looking at right now. Device status is super detailed information on all of the devices with a heartbeat check coming into the server. Group membership and location membership are about exactly what it says on the TIM. Is this device a member of a group? Is this device a member of a location? And mobile memberships is a little bit trickier because it has to do with the mobile recipient app. In that case, rather than devices checking in regularly, someone would have to install the recipient app and register, and we'd get information about their current status on the recipient app. Look at that last. So let's take a look at the device status report. We just got a default view here. You can see these are the devices that have a regular heartbeat check: alert beacon, desktop, digital signage override, HBSA, and text-to-speech. Now, notably absent are things like the mobile recipient app, because we don't want the phone pinging the server every 20 seconds. That would be a lot of data and reasonably expensive, so we do not do that. These are only things using our existing Ethernet network to be able to communicate to the server and have regular updates. By default, we've got a large number of categories here, including if they're online or not, the time of last check-in, if they're using battery voltage for things like alert beacons to have a backup battery, their build version. But aside from that, we also have this show hide column. You can see that's right here. If you click this, it opens up a pop-up, and this scroll bar goes on for days. You can find precisely anything you would want to filter on about any of these devices and check to make sure that a given variable is where you want it to be. This is a little bit more advanced, but if someone's asking a specific problem like, hey, this backup PogSac pager integration for this alert beacon doesn't seem to be functioning, can you take a look at it? You could in fact scroll down, find the pager section, and see which alert beacon has it enabled. And also check which ones are communicating via IP or FM radio traffic, the whole 9 yards. Device status report you can get lost in. But to avoid that, let's move on. Mobile memberships, now I guess we will not be doing last, are a little bit different. So these are the devices that are not actively checking in to the Alertus server. Instead, we have email and device installation set up here. So when you register for the Alertus mobile app, it will ask you for an email, and it will also let you associate that with any groups when you first sign into the app. You can see here are the groups that some people have joined. You'll also note that on the device installation tab, you can see which device has which specific email associated with it. So you can see, for instance, who has Android or iOS, when the account was created and when it was last modified. Now, this modified column is of particular importance because, again, we're not regularly checking with the cell phone. What we have instead is the last time the user submitted data, whether it be joining or leaving a group or just the initial install. So that is tracked in the server to let us know when the last activity of the user was. Aside from that, we won't know if someone has uninstalled the app because it does not send us a notification when it is uninstalled. That is unsolicited data, so we don't do that. All right, let's move on to group memberships, which is 3 accounts or 3 views masquerading as one. We have the default, which is alert device membership by group, alert device is not assigned by group, and group memberships by alert device. You can see that the option to reach these others is visible right here in the links on the default view. So more often than not, we'll use the first view, which is device membership by group. This is how you would expect it to function. If you open up a group, it will show you all of the devices connected into this group. You'll also be able to see if anything is mapped by contacts, which remember are based off of user, or by mobile users, which is the mobile subscription app. Here we can see unassigned devices is also pretty self-explanatory. If you have devices and they are not in any groups, they will show up in this report. This is useful for troubleshooting to make sure all of your devices have a home, and the ones that are not within a group would only be targeted by using the all command when sending, or by targeting them specifically by their ID. Or typing in name, I suppose, if you were searching for them. Last but not least is the group membership by alert device. This is sort of a pivot table of the first view. Here, you see the device name. We've got some wonky names over here, and then all of the groups that they are a member of. So you can see this particularly difficultly named device is a member of 3 separate groups. Whereas this one down here is a member of 2. If it's not a member of any group, it'll just have a little double dash there to indicate that it is groupless. You'd also be able to see it on the Unassigned Alert Devices page. Next, we have the location membership report. This is very similar to groups in that you have your devices mapped to a given location. You also have unassigned alert devices. So these are devices not in a location. The caveat here is we don't really need a report that shows which devices are a member of multiple locations because you can only be one place at a time. Although a device can be part of multiple groups, it can only ever be a member of one location. So only these 2 views are available. All right, let's take a quick section review on the reports that provide a picture of how the server is now, which is to say the specific devices and how they are configured. These are useful for determining the current status. Is the device online? Is it assigned a particular group or location? This is very useful for looking at the targeting of alerts to make sure that the given group that is being sent contains the devices that you expect to be there. Now we come to error troubleshooting methodology. This is actually pretty straightforward, much like much of this talk. The first step is to confirm error configuration. So someone will tell you something has gone wrong with an alert, and you start with the alert history report. You want to make sure that the correct message was sent out at the right time, to the right services, to the right groups. If someone's coming to you with a problem, it is very likely that one of these 4 things is incorrect. Either it was sent at 3 in the morning when it should not have been. It was saying active shooter rather than system test, which is something you definitely want to look into. It didn't include the right services for the groups or did not include the right groups for the services. Once you've confirmed all of these to be correct, the next step is to confirm the targets. If it's using the recipient app, are the users registered properly and in the groups? If it's using Voip, are the extensions correctly mapped in the alert service via the Voip activation report to see if they were targeted or not? Are the devices even in the groups with group membership report? And if you're using filtering via the map interface, are they in the correct locations, which would be location membership report? So it really is just a 2-step process. Is the alert configured? And are all the targets where they need to be within the targeting scheme? That said, let's provide a real-world example. So we'll say a mobile recipient app user reports that they did not receive the test active shooter message sent out on 3/31/22. This is what we have to work with. Let's see if we can figure out the problem. The first step is to find the offending alert, which means we go to reports, alert history. Here we are. They provide us the information of the time sent and the message contents. So we're going to go ahead and scroll down until we find, bam, here we go. Here's the alert at the right time, 3/31/22, and it is in fact an active shooter evacuation order. So let's see if we can investigate what happened here. We see that the mobile alert service was targeted, so it should go out to mobile endpoints. And we also see that the address mode was grouped with South, East, West, and North Campus. So from this configuration, we can say it was not all, but it did include mobile, and it included these specific groups. Our next step then is to look at those groups and see what was a member or not. So we're going to use a default view of group memberships, which is alert device membership by groups. And although we've got a number of devices set up on these groups, we can see we have no mobile users. So it seems we found a problem. It would explain why they're not receiving the message if they're not a member of the groups that are being targeted. But this raises a more fundamental question. If there are no mobile users at all in these groups, do these targets even exist? So to do our due diligence, we can go to the mobile app membership report and confirm that there are in fact users registered to the app, so we can narrow down the specific failure point. In this case, we can see there are in fact 3 test devices installed, each with an email, and they're installed on 3 phones. So our test group for this active shooter drill is available, but they did not receive it because they were not in the proper groups. So to conclude this, we go ahead and file a report to our stakeholders. We say we investigated, we found the issue resides in our group memberships. Although our faculty members are part of the Alertus mobile recipient app, and it is installed properly on their phones and they are registered, they're not a member of the groups that were targeted. So then we elevate up and say, those who generate our standard operating procedures, how do we want to proceed? We can either provide additional instructions for those users to join those groups if they're attending those campuses, or we could change the way the mobile alert service is sent to be a gray alert service, so everyone, no matter what, who is registered to the app will receive those active shooter drills. Now, it's important not to just make these changes on the fly. We want to make sure we're reporting up and make sure the documentation on our standard operating procedures will be updated to reflect the changes we make. So this is where our job ends. This is also where our presentation ends. So I thank you all for joining me today on our how-to series about using reports for troubleshooting. I am again, Brian White, the Senior Technical Training Specialist here at Alertus, and I will take any questions pertaining to using these reports. All right, seeing nothing in the chat, I'll give you all another 30 seconds or so. See if anyone wants to unmute and just shout out. If not, that's fine too. I've had a lovely morning with y'all, and I hope you have enjoyed it as well. All right, looks like we are all finished. So to those of you attending today, thank you for your time. And for those of you watching this on our online database, I wish you the best of your day as well.